A lot of things happened during the pandemic, and the one thing that I still find strange is uh, Vance is still attacking Harris when the one who's doing the policies was Biden. Well, admittedly, Harris helped him. I mean, it was still his policies, not hers. Okay, the vice president technically is just to be what, the spare tire in case something happens to the president, then she takes over.
Yeah, right.
She doesn't make any policies. Okay, which I find a little confusing. Okay, well, admittedly, yes, she's there to advise. If the vice president and the president have a good relationship, the vice president will be the last person the president will ask.
Good day. Welcome to Tip Talks, Season 2, Episode 2. And today, we are going to analyze the performance during the debate of the United States vice presidential candidates. But before we go on, let's let our panel of analysts introduce themselves. So, good evening, everybody. How are you doing?
Good
We're
evening,
doing well,
Dina.
thank
Good
you,
evening,
Dino.
Paul.
Yeah. So,
Kita
thi-
Dina.
this is our season 2 already, so I'm sure you know most of us already. Dina. Dina is a DTM, a past district governor of the Toastmasters in the Philippines. She's also a consultant trainer and one of the hosts of the Leader's Edge. So, Aylene here is an old hand at the Leader's Edge as well as of Tip Talks, where she gave many analysis of past presidents' speeches. Anything new to add,
That's right.
Eileen?
Well, not really, except that I'm now almost a full-time servant of Couples for Christ. And for the longest time, I taught in the University Adamson in LaSalle as an electronics and communications engineer.
That's right. Eileen is a math teacher too. So, um, if we're looking for somebody analytical, that would be Eileen. Thank you for joining us, Eileen. Um,
Thank you.
and she's also an artist too, by the way. If you didn't know that, she paints very well. So, Paul, a little bit about yourself.
Most of you know me if you watch the show regularly, even in
Yeah.
the Leader's Edge.
Mm-mm.
What can I say? I'm 60. I've been working for almost 40 years, raised
Wow.
4 daughters. So if you include all of that, all my experiences, pretty much that's what I bring to all of these podcasts that the Speakers Bureau has been holding.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. And while you do live with so many ladies, tonight we are joined by two ladies. So it's balanced, two men, two women. And let's get the ball rolling. So let me share.
Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you?
Okay, so we'll pause that briefly, and we'll give everyone a chance to weigh in. So, who'd like to start?
Oh, I'll do it.
Okay,
All
sure.
right.
Ladies first.
Yeah, right. Well, obviously, Walz's intention is to really focus on the weaknesses of Trump, because he peppered his answer with all the descriptions about the what we call all the flaws of Trump. And everybody agrees Trump really has flaws. And there were just times when he peppered his answers with so that one. Plus, of course, I get the impression that actually he was very tense. He was getting nervous because I know he is aware of the polished way that Vance talks. So that could be part of the reason why I could see some nervousness in his facial expressions.
All right, thank you so much. I'd like now to turn over to Paul to react to what he saw.
Well, he really didn't answer the question because instead he spent most of the time talking about how unfit Trump is to deal with such a situation. The nervousness, yes, it was there. But the one thing that Walz strikes me, at least, I mean, he really sounds like your next door neighbor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He sounds very human, very real. Okay, that's the strength that he has. And while the points he made I felt were more than valid, okay, he really didn't answer the question because he said, "What would you do?" And I think he just said something briefly about, Israel has the right to defend itself. And he has a point there, but then he also goes, there's also a limit. I forgot exactly how he said it, but you don't want it to extend too far. And then he spent most of that time talking about how unfit Trump is to handle such a situation and how Kamala is a better choice at that point. So yeah, he answered the question, and he also took, I think, most of the time to campaign for his president, if you want to say.
All right, thank you so much, Paul. Interesting that both of you have that observation. I saw it as well, and I'd like to hear now a reaction from Aylene. Aylene, what do you think?
Well, I have a different point of view regarding the thought that he did not really answer the question, because he did emphasize that they're supporting Israel by saying that Trump went to the uh, opposite extreme, like going with the Putins and North Korea. So this for me is a tacit declaration of how they will not do as Trump does in terms of their policies and security, and that they will that the United States or that the administration that they currently have is for defending Israel because they know that Israel will really have to defend itself by saying it's fundamental.
Okay, thank you so much, Aylene. I'm envious of all three of you for having watched the whole debate already. Some of you more than once. I have seen it once,
Truly.
and what I would say is that, for my own take on it, is that there is that element of humanity in the way that our first speaker responded, our first candidate responded, because he, sometimes when you're too polished, you make people feel that this is another politician giving a slick pitch or a slick presentation. So he has that charm in the sense that he comes across as a real person, as Paul said, the guy next door. On the other hand, what sort of bothered me, if I can use that word, is that there were some pauses that were a little bit awkward. And in a way, I didn't mind them because I'd rather have him pause awkwardly than to pepper his speech with ahs, ums, or what we call embolalias. That would have been worse. Still, as a way of starting off the debate, I like the fact that he mimicked what Kamala did, which was he walked across the stage and then, although Vance met him halfway,
Sure.
shook hands, like the way Kamala did when
Yeah, cordial.
they had that debate with Trump. So to me, that sets the theme for we're courteous, civil, and gentlemanly here. So he offered the hand of friendship and began that way. But having done that, and the way he talked, my final take is he wasn't as powerful as he could be or possibly be. Like during the intro of the show, the CBS intro, where we saw a portion of him thundering away. So like he decided to be mellow and to just I think he was trying to maybe pace himself. So let's watch the rebuttal of Vance. All right, hold on. Let me just. Sometimes I forget. I have to press the share button. Here we go. Sharing. And here we go. Play.
To support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran, you have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me. And she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you?
Okay, so we'll pause there, and this time I'll start with Aylene.
All right. Vance here presented himself as to be very endearing. He's very good looking and suave. And he talked as if he knew what he was talking about. But unfortunately, he disappointed me by saying all rude statements such as Trump has delivering security, and did not really make a detail of what Trump had been doing, especially during the attack of Iran, or Iran bombarding the American embassy with missiles, thereby having at least 11 people die. So he's saying one thing, and yet Trump has done something else. So he cannot really emphasize the main points of their strategy because Trump already did something that is contrary to what he's now currently saying. So he's just acting as if, he's doing the suave thing or the smooth talk, but not really doing or facilitating an emphasis on the the deeds that Trump has done in the past.
Okay, thank you so much, Aylene. Paul, what's your take?
Well, there's no doubt that he speaks definitely smoother. Okay, definitely more suave. Absolutely agree with that. But again, to Eileen's point, he missed out on so many things, or maybe told half things, half truths, if you want to say. And unfortunately, I remember watching the Toastmaster, the winning speech of the guy who started with a cigarette. You remember that one? And it was about the power of words. And unfortunately, he's using the power of the word. For me, he's using the power of words incorrectly. He delivers it well, but simply because there's a mismatch between what Trump did and what he's saying, is already misusing the power of words. And that's where it starts coming off not so well for me. But he does speak very well.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. Dina, what do you
Mm.
think?
All right. Well, let me point out something. The reason Iran has more firepower now is because Biden and his administration decided to give them billions of dollars, which, as a matter of fact, America held on to it so that they don't bring chaos into the world, and they did. So whatever it is that Trump may or may have not done in the past is that they have practically doubled, tripled over, and sort of lay over them, went beyond themselves trying to appease Iran, and now look what Iran has unleashed. Actually, they don't strike America, but they strike Israel, and they strike anywhere else in the world, and even in the what we call in different passages in the oceans, where they send all the surrogates. They send their surrogates with the weapons that they supply. So what I'm saying is, if you compare the misdemeanors of Trump to the misdemeanors of the Biden presidency, they are just way worlds apart, because at least during the time of Trump, there were no wars going on at the same time. And here's the America giving aid to this and that country. I mean, it was peaceful, and the average American had more money in their wallets. I know that for a fact because even my daughter told me when they started to invest on a little investment package, and because of the stiff regulations of the Biden administration, they actually lost money. So my daughter decided to invest in the condos here in the Philippines, and they're actually making more money investing in the condos in the Philippines rather than investing in America because of the over-regulation of the Biden administration. So what can I say? You know, both parties have blundered, but the worst blunders because it has practically put their economy way down what it was during the time of the Trump administration, and that's the reason why the race is so tight because even though Trump really has so many flaws, he has. Everybody can see that. But it's just that they remember, the Americans remember fondly that they have more money for groceries. They have more money for the cost of living so, than during the Biden administration. So I just love the way Vance comes across as a very, I would say, effective spokesperson for Trump. In fact, he is the better version of Trump because obviously Trump doesn't have the discipline, but Vance is a more disciplined speaker.
All right. Thank you so much, Dina. I can tell you have quite a bit to say. uh, uh, appreciate those insights, especially about how you noticed while you were in the U.S. with your daughter, and hearing firsthand from people who live there what their life has been because of uh, the various presidents. Now, I just like to say for my own observation that if I didn't look at it as a vice presidential debate per se, but just looked at it as a debate among two speakers, Vance would come out ahead because of how smooth he speaks and how fast he's talking. So I caught him speaking at around 156 to 158 words per minute, which to me communicated confidence and composure. No, and clarity in what he was trying to say. I also love the way that he tried to introduce himself first, setting the background about this is where I came from, this is who I am, and the fact that he was downrange of a war puts without question his sense of patriotism, his willingness to face danger, and he understands the need for a country to defend itself. So, in terms of credibility, he puts it out there uh, very, very far ahead. Yep, and I agree with Aylene. It doesn't help that he looks he looks handsome. He looks very dapper. Um, compared to compared to the other candidate, he's just in terms of optics, he's ahead. So why don't we listen to the rebuttal coming from his opponent? Okay, here we go.
You care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal.
Okay, so we'll pause there. Wow. That's a big difference. So this time I'd like to start with Paul.
It's very difficult because I don't know all the details about the Iran deal. Okay. The things that I do know about the economy are Trump inherited a strong economy from Obama. He did. And he screwed it up. And he gave that to Biden. And Biden had to fix it. Okay. That's why it looked so bad when Biden started. He had to fix something that Trump screwed up. If you look at the numbers today when the economy, well, that's a different conversation. But Walz's answer pretty much was directed against countering what Vance was saying. Again, Walz still comes across as the guy next door. He's talking more real than Vance is. Vance, I find just way too polished. He's too slick. And admittedly, with all the politics going on in the US, I don't think they're looking for another slick speaker. That's what they don't want. So, I mean, I wouldn't know, but my guess is that's what they don't want. They need somebody who can, talk to them like a person, if you want to say. And that's, again, like I said earlier, that's Walz's advantage.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. This time I'll call on Dina.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've heard that before, actually, when Obama campaigned for Harris, is that he claims that Trump inherited the good economy from him and then Trump destroyed the economy. I don't think so, because I talk with the average Americans when I just came back from America, and they really want Trump back. I mean, you got to hear it from the Americans themselves, those living there day after day. They are living it. So, and then many of them are praying because they know that Trump is really so undisciplined and so flawed. He is really a flawed individual, but they like his policies. They really love the way he came up with all the policies that somehow made their lives a little easier. So they are actually the ones who are praying that he will win. But it's a toss-up election, and you could not, this is, as a matter of fact, I just saw several TV coverages that saying the average American is becoming so tense just because of all these election campaigns, and they are getting so stressed out. So many of them are just wishing that it will just be over. So, yeah, but I agree with Paul that Paul really, the Walz comes across as like your average guy, Yeah, it's just that the Harris that they are trying to put very quickly to replace Biden is not always what she says she is, because she's not from a middle income family, but she had rich parents. And there, of course, both sides are all this trying to fake it, trying to fake several things about their backgrounds. So what I'm saying is this, that you really just need to prioritize what's more important for you, because right now, what I know, the Trump campaign, their number one concern is the economy and the immigration, because the Biden administration unleashed millions of illegal immigrants, just swooped down on all the different states of America and actually stole the jobs that Americans had, and now they don't want to hire the Americans because it is so much cheaper to hire the illegal immigrants. And so that's why a lot of people are really groaning. They are so wailing. Why? Because these illegal immigrants are now competing with the average American for the jobs that they used to have, and which now they cannot have, because the what we call many of the industrial establishments there, of course, they would rather hire a very chippy illegal immigrant compared to the average American. So that's the reason why the race is so tight. Yeah.
Oh,
Because yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's the average
Yeah.
Americans can feel the squeeze.
All right. uh, um, mm, um, I guess you've had your experiences, and thank you for sharing them. Uh, let's hear from Eileen.
I agree with Paul and Tita Dinah's comments. Now, even early on this debate, we already see that both are attacking or taking aim at the top candidates of their parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. But so far in this debate, I have not seen any advantage as to why you would want to vote for either Vance or for Walz. So it's always about the presidential candidates and how they
Mhm.
support. So this debate is not about them or their policies, but a debate as to how they will defend the top of their tickets.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how I see it. And I agree that America does not need a smooth talker anymore. America needs some solid policies regarding economy, their security, the immigration, economy, healthcare, for example. And as you can see, Vance already attacked in the sense that the the disadvantages that America has been through now is going through now is because of the policies that Kamala Harris has put in place, meaning not what Biden put in place. So it's attack specifically or psychologically saying the name Harris and not saying the name Biden.
Mm,
So I see that the attack is slowly becoming psychological. And even as Vance maintains his coolness, you can see that Walz is slowly attacking, slowly moving into the opposite of the defense. He is using statistics, he's using actual knowledge and not just rhetoric.
mm. Thank you so much, Eileen. I would say that I like the way that Waltz came back this time. I think it's a lot like when you watch a prize fight, like a heavyweight fight between, say, Ali and somebody else. Um, they will first spar a little bit, and they're a bit gentle with their initial punches. But when first blood is drawn, that is when the fighter comes out in a person. And I saw that because I will admit this, watching this debate before the show, it was easy for me to remember the name Vance, and I will confess that even now, when I start to talk about the other candidate, I always say the other candidate. But watching Waltz talk during this time, I finally remembered him because this time he made a stronger impression on me. I like it when he comes on a little bit stronger, because to me that is what he needs to be able to communicate that yes, my opponent is a former serviceman, a former Marine with battlefield experience, but I can go toe to toe with him too, and that's what I liked seeing this time. I hope that the rest of this debate will show more of that, because that is exactly what he will need to go and have a good matchup with Vance. So that's the way I saw it. So now let's go on with the rest of the debate.
with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora?
Margaret.
Okay, so let's pause that. All right. So let's start this time with Aylene. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
Vance has been emphasizing that Trump has this policy of deterrence, although he did not explain what this deterrence means. And I disagree that the security that Trump has put in place for the United States is a stable delivery of policy, a peace policy or security policy, and that when he said that, when was the last time that there was a conflict among leaders regarding policies, or that there was no how would I put it, that during Trump's administration there was no fighting internationally? That is only because he ruled, or he governed during the pandemic. So everybody was focused on the pandemic. No one was focused on attacking. Like the Hamas was not focused on that. Israel, in fact, was among the first who came up with a treatment, or rather, I think they were not really affected by COVID itself, right? But the America, the United States was among the first to be attacked by the COVID situation. And there was no other focus but to come up with a vaccine and to increase and improve their healthcare. So I believe that Vance was having a difficult time trying to really take in the fact that he's not he does not believe what he says as far as what Trump has created or done during his time. So parang ang hirap. It's so difficult for him to talk about something he cannot have any tangible evidence of, and his glib way of presenting things, just it's a way of effectively escaping the questions. And later on, we will see that a lot of questions directed to him, directed to the Trump administration, he will not be able to answer directly.
Okay, thank you so much, Aylene. And to that end, I would like to say that I remember Paul correctly pointed out that New Zealand did have a better way of dealing with the pandemic than the US did. So, yep, there is resonance in what you're saying. Paul, what do you think? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh yeah, mute.
Okay.
Similar to what Aylene is saying, you could begin to sense that Vance is doing his best to believe what he's saying. Okay, you need to get that sense that there's a slight misalignment, and as it progresses, I think it just gets worse. A lot of things happened during the pandemic, And the one thing that I still find strange is uh, Vance is still attacking Harris when the one who's doing the policies was Biden. Well, admittedly, Harris helped him. I mean, it was still his policies, not hers. Okay, the vice president technically is just to be what, a spare tire in case something happens to the president, then she takes over.
Yeah, right.
She doesn't make any policies. Okay, which I find a little confusing. Okay, well, admittedly, yes, she's there to advise. If the vice president and the president have a good relationship, the vice president will be the last person the president will ask.
Yeah.
But eventually, the decision is still Biden's.
Mm.
And again, when they step out into the world stage, there's so many things going on in the world stage. It's very difficult to say that what Biden did was wrong, or that what Trump did was wrong. So it's really a little difficult. There's so many, how would you say? There's so many things you have to consider.
Mm.
Okay, like when the time they sent aid to Iran, I mean, a lot of people just looked at it on the surface. How could they be sending money when sending money was the only way to stabilize the situation?
Mm.
I mean, and it was a very, how do you call, there were a lot of ramifications from it that just looking at the surface wasn't enough. But that said, going back to the quality of the answer, Vance is beginning to exactly what Aylene said. He's beginning to. I see him struggling to say something that I don't think he really believes in.
Mm. Thank you so much, Paul. Dina, what do you think?
I just want to point out something. Paul, while I agree with you in many of the things you mentioned, but you see, Harris was appointed by Biden to be the border czar, meaning also she was directed to go to the border and have several what we call regulations or instructions to the guards there not to allow the immigrants to come in. And she did not visit the border even once, which of course made all these migrants, all these illegal immigrants bolder and bolder until it became such a stink because there were just too many coming in, hundreds of thousands on a monthly or daily basis, thousands and thousands. And so I beg to disagree that she didn't have any thing to do with all the what we call the faux pas of the Biden administration. One of the greatest errors of the Biden administration was allowing illegal immigrants to come in. As a matter of fact, they are providing them with houses, free food, free schooling, and all that, and to the detriment of the American citizens themselves. So I beg to disagree. Kamala Harris could have done something to stop the flow of the illegal immigrants, but she did not do it. I guess in her mind, it's okay to have them come in and vote for us, you know? So really, again, I can speak with confidence because I talked with American citizens themselves. Remember, I was in America for 1.5 months. So I know a lot. I hear a lot of things and they keep on, even in their churches, they pray. They pray that the tide will turn in favor of Trump because even though he is so flawed and he has a foul mouth, he's so vulgar, but his policies, they were enjoying better times during his term.
All right. I am tempted to ask Diana to maybe do what the VP candidates are doing, which is stick to their 1 minute response. After all, we are hoping to keep the episode under an hour. Well, okay. Having said that, um, here's something odd that is happening to us and to the two candidates.
Mhm,
Oddly, we're not really, and they're not really talking
mhm,
or responding to the questions directly,
mhm,
which really should be what the debate is all about. What does the vice president think
mhm,
about this issue, and how do you plan to address it? Because if something happens to the president, the vice president should be able to take over seamlessly to keep the country running. And yet, so far, what I'm hearing is both candidates going after the presidents, and here we are doing the same thing as
Yeah,
well.
well, Dino,
So,
Dino, there's a reason for that. In the Philippines, when we elect our officials, we elect president and vice president, not necessarily from the same party. In America, when you elect the president, automatically he brings in the vice president.
okay, so
Yeah, that
But
is also my question. That's also my question. Why these two are
yeah,
emphasizing to attack or to aim
yeah,
at the top ticket? Yun
yeah,
pala, the policy in the States is that you vote only once for
yeah,
both the president and
yes,
the vice president. So if you vote for Harris, you take in Walz. If you
yeah,
vote for Trump, you take in Vance.
yes,
That's
yes.
how they do it.
oh,
That's why
okay.
in the beginning I was having difficulty. I
Uh-uh.
was I felt uncomfortable as to why these two are not concentrating
Yeah,
on their vice presidential positions.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
they're attacking Harris in
yeah,
particular and Trump in particular, not the previous
right,
not like Biden,
yeah,
but essentially they have to lift up their
yeah,
top ticket partners.
right,
Yun
yeah,
pala.
yeah,
Yeah.
big difference, yeah.
Okay, so clearing that up, we
Mm,
we'll now proceed with the rest of the debate.
yeah.
Okay, so here we go.
Storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then of course afterwards to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Okay, so we'll react to this. I'll do something a little different this time. I'll lead off because this time I have strong feelings about Vance saying that America is trying to lead the world in terms of being responsible over carbon emissions or in cleaning cleaning everything, because I happen to know that two countries who didn't sign the Kyoto Accord are China and the United States. So from where I'm sitting, I disagree with his assertion that they're doing something to fix that, because the way that they're doing that is by sending their manufacturing outside of the US. So, like for example, when you produce lithium batteries for electric vehicles, which is electrifying the world and transportation, so that they don't emit anything. Um, when they outsourced the manufacturing to China, China was the one that was cleaning up the chemicals, the materials, and polluting the environment, thanks to their building their factories over there. Even Tesla built one of the biggest factories in China. So, from where I'm sitting, I don't feel that the Republicans or the Democrats can take the high ground in terms of climate change or making an impact over it. America just simply um, moved the emissions or the pollution to other parts of the world. So now I'd like to hear Paul.
Well, you're probably right. Okay. Again, I don't know all the details. I know the U.S. didn't sign the Kyoto Agreement. That I know. I don't know how long ago that was. Uh, and the biggest challenge I think Vance has is the promises he's making are promises that Trump is also making, that they'll bring jobs back, when that still has to happen. In fact, when Trump was around, the jobs left. Okay, there's one famous incident where I think he was at a carrier plant saying, "Oh no, we're going to keep them," and then a week later, the carrier plant closed down. Okay, and they moved everything out. That so it's really again a challenge for Vance again, similar to what happened earlier. It's very difficult because the unfortunately globalization happened and is happening. Okay, and it's really very difficult to try to bring jobs back and all of that. So again, Vance finds himself in a position where what he's saying isn't exactly what Trump is doing. Okay, so he's also having that situation there. But that's about the jobs. And again, I don't know if that had anything to do with the weather
Yeah.
or the climate change. Okay,
Thank you so
over
much,
to you, Dino.
Paul. Yeah. Eileen, what do you think? Oh,
I
there you
think at
go.
this point, yeah, at this point, we have to remember that at one time, or even several times after that, Trump would say that climate change is a hoax, and that
Mm.
in the course of his government, and even after, he would be talking to oil executives, oil companies, and tell them, "Oh, you just put in funds to my campaign, and I will let you do what you want after."
Mm.
So his policies is not bent on addressing what he feels is non-existent, because he calls it a hoax. So
Mm.
how would Trump formulate policies in order to mitigate the effects of climate change when he himself does not believe it? So just like Paul says, Vance does not really have in his heart the real intentions of the running mate Trump. So that's how I see it. And looking at the position being held now by Walz, being a governor, he is more into the the focused area of how Biden has helped the different states in order to rise up and mitigate the effects of climate change, which they believe exists.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. Dinah, what do you think?
Yeah, you really have to weigh the thing. carefully. You have to balance. That's what I'm saying. If I'm a government official of any country in the world, I need to balance. You see, the more you go green, the more your economy suffers, because the more you will have to import oil and all that stuff that you can no longer do in your own country. So you really need to walk the fine point and just keep it, make the what we call the economy as your focal point, which is what Trump is doing and what Vance is doing, is that they don't want to have to buy all of the oil from other countries, because there's really, in fact, even Kamala Harris is now she said, no, I'm against fracking. Now she says she's for fracking, because fracking is one of those things where they can reduce importations of oil, So actually, both parties are in the same bind. We cannot put the blame all on the Trump side. It will happen to anyone who's there, because you just have to have a balance, just to make sure that your country does not get also hammered in by all the prices dictated by other parts of the world. So that's the reason why I know that Trump is already planning on not only the fracking, but even drilling, because there are huge reserves of oil in America, which they have not touched because of their concern about the weather, all these the green environment. But in the meantime, they suffer economically. So Trump is trying his best to do a fine balance between the two and not go all overboard with just the green, the green, just preventing all these other consumptions of gas and all that, and putting it all there, because he knows that people also need to have a little more money in their wallets. And I guess that's a fine thing now. That's why between the two of them, for me, there is a little more equilibrium or some kind of balance on the side of Trump. He doesn't want to go all the way in one side, but balancing. That's what he's doing. So that's the reason why I don't believe that Vance is just spouting it, because they are in constant touch, Trump and Vance, and they talk things over. So he knows what he's talking about.
Okay, so um, I think it's in the slogans themselves when
Yeah.
they say America first. It doesn't say the world, like the emphasis is not really about caring about what's happening in the world, but caring about what happens to
Mm-hmm.
America or in America. Because I'm aware as well that Norway and Finland, for example, are way better at managing green emissions. Both of them have extensively gone into hydrogen powered vehicles
Mm-hmm.
and electric powered vehicles. Um, and their economy isn't really suffering because of that. So, in other words, maybe they have best practices that America could and should copy. Because when you have a mission statement that says America first,
Mm-hmm.
that also automatically implies to the exclusion of the rest of the planet. So, um, yep, I would also like to point out that at this point in the debate, when Waltz looked over to Vance as he was talking, I felt that there was a oneness between the two in feeling concern over the victims of the hurricane that hit America. So at that moment in time, there was no Republican or Democrat. There was just two people who genuinely cared about what happens to the people who were victimized by that storm. Okay, so let's go on with the next part of the debate.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane, and my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together to all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to.
Okay, so let's react to this. Okay. Aylene, what do you think?
I guess I have preempted already that section of the debate, talking about talking about how Trump feels about the climate change and how as a governor, he also has seen how the farmers were able to adapt, how they were able to come up with crops in order to abate the problems of climate change, as well as moving forward to creating more sources of energy that is green, like the wind, for example. And I think one of the biggest solar power farms now is in Minnesota. So they have already put the green type of sourcing, energy sourcing in their states. They've already started with replacing the coal mining and oil and fracking, which results in maybe soil erosion or soil poisoning, to that which is the more greener option. So it's after checking, you will be able to realize that they are really focused on moving forward in terms of technology. In fact, one of the things that I heard, I think in Fox News, that they're against Camilla is that she is pushing for EV or electronic vehicles now in order to save up and do away with oils and its old technology. So I believe that Walz has seen, we have seen his emphatic stance on the effects of climate change and the stance that the current government is taking on in order to abate and to mitigate the effects of, climate change, temperatures going up, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you so much, Aylene. Dina, 1 minute, please. Okay, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, actually, they have. I believe I agree with Aylene that they are doing their best. And I'm just so happy also that Trump has Elon Musk in his corner, because Elon Musk, in fact, is being a genius. He also has his electric cars. And so that will help. That will help the economy. So I would still say I will go for balance. I would not go one way too much, leaning on one side or the other. And I just feel like I like the stance of Trump, because he is right there in the middle, not too much on the right or not too much on the left, but he wants to balance both sides.
All right, thank you. Paul, how do you feel about this one?
Well, uh, the interesting thing is, uh, Vance pointed out that, hey, look, we're not, how do you call it, pumping enough oil, if you want to say. But Walz also pointed out that under Biden, the oil production's at its highest
Mm.
ever since. Okay, so again, there's that issue of, what is Vance saying? Okay, uh, but the biggest thing is, as pointed out by Aylene, is I don't know if Trump believes in climate change.
Mm.
Okay, personally, I don't think he does, and it's real. And it's scary real. When I say scary real, I attended a short talk about climate change and insurance, and they said, look, if the climate goes above two degrees centigrade, we can't insure anything
Oh, wow.
because they don't know what's going to happen.
Mm.
And the last registered climate change was an increase of 1.75.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, that's how close it is, and that's how serious it is. So something really has to be done about it. When it comes to the EV vehicles, it's frightening what China's doing, because even Japan's afraid of them.
Mm.
Okay, and Toyota is well ahead of all the American manufacturers in practically all fields, and now even they're afraid of what China's doing with EVs. No,
Mm.
so those are all a bunch of, how do you call, world economy things that, of course, the United States is there, and they have to think of it like that as well. But when it comes to the climate change, it's a lot. It really is very, very serious, and unfortunately, Trump is just not taking it seriously.
I tend to agree, because Trump's background is in real estate, and that quip made by Waltz about Trump making a joke about, oh, we'll have more beachfront property as a result of that. While that may have been funny to him at the time, I'm sure it wasn't funny to the people who lived along the coastlines who lost their properties. In our country, we used to say, don't buy anybody selling a second-hand car. You have to ask him first, did it survive on Ondoy? Because we knew that a car that went through a flood and experienced damage would go down in value. But hey, we just went through a typhoon that flooded so many of our cities, including Lipa, which is geographically higher than some other parts of Batangas, and yet they had a terrible flood, and so a lot of people suffered through that. Um, so here, for the first time, I'm starting to hear Waltz saying less of what I felt were motherhood statements, and is starting to be more specific, starting to be more strategic in how he's responding to that direct questions with some direct answers. Um, I like the way that the debate is progressing, because, like in many Rocky movie, you see Rocky taking some punches first, looking hurt and teetering, tottering, but then he comes back strong. So, despite the fact that Vance is more handsome, younger, certainly more energetic, and possibly faster in the way that he thinks, you can also see that Waltz has experience on his side, because as he prepares to respond, you see him taking notes. You see him planning carefully how he will decide to react when his time comes. And so you see somebody, okay, he's older, sure, but he's also showing the maturity and the strategic response that the other candidate is not. So and with that, you hear more certainty in what he's saying versus what Vance is saying. Okay, so I think we should jump to the
Mhm.
to the
Conclusion. Yeah.
closing remarks already. All right, so here we go. And let me just move this to the final. Let's see. I'm not sure if this is the final part.
Welcome back to the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. It is now time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you.
Okay, so let's react to that. um, may I ask Paul to begin?
I'd like to, well, we'll see when Vance speaks, because it took me only until now to realize it, is when Walz speaks, he has better music,
Mm.
the way he sounds. Vance is too, it's too flat
Mm.
for me. Okay. And maybe that's why Waltz sounds better.
Mm.
He sounds just better because there's better music to his speech. It has better, how would I say, has better, I don't want to call it intonation, but maybe vocal variety, because it goes up and down more.
Yeah.
Oh,
It goes up
intonation.
and down, intonation, and
Yeah.
it goes up and down in a more pleasant way. Vance is a lot flatter.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, and maybe that's why he speaks well, he speaks smoothly and all of that, but it doesn't come out as maybe as heartfelt, if you want to
Mhm.
say.
Mm.
Maybe it'll show up when Vance gives his final remarks.
Mhm.
Over to you, Dino.
Thank you, Paul. Dina, what do you think?
Mhm. Oh, the more I listen to Walz, actually, the better and better he sounds. You know, it's just that you cannot take out from my mind what I know is that they keep on saying that Trump is a liar. Actually, Walz already made two lies and he was forced to admit it. I misspoke, claiming that he was out in the war. He was not, So he actually claimed that he went out to militarily to fight for America, which he did not. And then there was also another, what we call in his district, they had certain corrupt officials that were supposed to be charged, and he allowed them to get away with it. And he also admitted that, but because his attention was called, what I'm saying is that lying, of course, Trump has made an art of it, but everybody lies to some degree or another. I mean, there's no such thing as somebody who never lies in politics. So that's all I can say. And it's just that probably the Harris camp does it a little sweeter and gentler than, than Trump.
Okay, thank you so much, Dina. Eileen, your thoughts, please.
Without sacrificing, rather, or going into the root of being ad hominem, Walz emphasized the character of Harris as a person who was able to build coalitions with even the Democrats, the progressives. And right now, you see a lot of celebrities endorsing her. I'm a fan of Law and Order, and yeah, it's Mariska Hargitay is endorsing her. Beyonce is endorsing her. Taylor Swift is endorsing her. You see a lot of um, age groups rooting for her because of the Democratic stance that Kamala Harris has taken in for herself. And it's a wonderful thing that the main effect of the lies are now being put into light, and that, yeah, I understand and I believe that medyo nahuli si Walz regarding his not being in China during the time that he says he was in Tiananmen Square, but that's only once. Trump has been lying in and out and a lot of times, and we cannot just take this and sweep it over the rug, under the rug rather. It's something that a president should have integrity. A president should have bearing, should have focus, should have. I remember one saying, I think this is in The View, that how can a person say that he will protect women when at the same time he assaults them?
Mm.
So it's not a matter of you being suave or glib or sly or good in speaking, but you can see here from the time that from the beginning or in the beginning, also saying, look, blah blah blah, look, he, it's as if saying, o tingnan mo to, or look at this and see my point of view. He worked his way towards the end. He no longer uses the terms look. He emphasizes the statistics, history, focusing on the future, the actual policies being in place. So I believe that Walz, in this particular debate, regardless of his intonation, regardless of his monotheist, no, monotone stance of speaking, I think he's won this debate.
All right, thank you so much, Eileen. My own take on it is that in this closing segment, uh, Waltz has better vocal dynamics. Why? Because, as Paul pointed out, the musicality of the way that he speaks is pleasanter to listen to. I would say that the reason why Vance has a tendency to be monotonal is because of his military background. He is a Marine, and anybody who's undergone military training will agree that one of the things that you're required to do is to speak fast, speak short, and try to use a monotone, like when you go, permission to enter the officer's barracks, sir. That's the way they're called upon to talk. And so this thing carries over into his political career, into his way of speaking. So yes, he may be slick, he may be a fast thinker, he's able to respond quicker. But you have to be able to do that if you're a commander and you're a soldier in battle. You have to be able to do that. But at the same time, that also helps you to create the optics that yes, you are polished, you're slick, but also cold. So here, Waltz comes across as more earnest, more human somehow. And again, his message is look to the future. There is hope. The only thing that maybe I didn't quite like, if I have to say it that way, is that he was quoting entertainers or people in Hollywood. So the part where he redeemed himself was when he said that other people from other parts of society are now aligning with Kamala, um, because I do not like the idea that entertainers will somehow make a difference, because you look in our country, just because you're an artista does not necessarily qualify you for public office, or to be an influencer. So that part of it, I want to point out. Okay, so now we will listen to the closing remarks of Vance.
Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance.
Okay, so woo. Aylene, what do you think?
You can see him to be a consistent, great speaker. You see him as a consistent, good soldier.
Mm.
Because even as he has to deal with a lot of lies and a lot of inconsistencies regarding the ticket or the Trump administration, he still focuses on the positive that the Trump administration will be able to do. And I feel that if Trump wins, he will be a big voice in order to move the Trump administration towards what he does not feel right at the moment, he will move towards going through that path that he wants to go to, despite just being a VP. So I think it's a strategy because he has to align himself. Trump is a very strong candidate, and being carried by Trump, being carried by the campaign um, money that the Trump campaign holds right now is something that he will not just be looking at only in this campaign. He is looking forward to the future and what will become of him and not of Trump alone.
Okay, thank you so much,
That's it.
Aylene. Dina, what do you think?
I love the style of Vance because he is so specific. And I like the way he said first, second, and well, with all details. And I like it because it resonates with me, and I believe it resonates with the needs of the average American citizen. That is what they are really, really longing for right now. When I went to the US 2 years ago, 2022, I already began to see people were already carrying streamers Trump 2024. Trump has this ability, or he really has a huge drawing power with the people. They are so devoted to him, and that, for me, that is still the mark of a great leader, because you cannot make people just follow you and want you to lead if they don't like you. So obviously, I believe he can still make something better out of what is happening in America now. But of course, it's really a toss up right now. It's anybody's guess what's going to happen. But I really just love the style of Vance, because he sounds so professional, and he knows what he's talking about. It's not like he was just groping for words. He was really rattling them off, and very sure, his confidence level is superior.
Okay, thank you so much, Dina. Uh, Paul, I covet your words.
Well, I overall, because I did watch the whole thing, Vance, he comes across definitely as a better speaker. But between the two, I still think that Waltz was the one that was able to enable an emotion, which is what all speakers want to do. They just don't want to come across as polished, is you want to create some kind of emotion in the person that you're speaking to.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, maybe his intonation, I think, was a little more powerful, and that he was able to create some an emotion that was maybe more significant and more impactful than Vance. Okay, that's pretty much my whole the summary of the whole thing. Over
Thank you
to you,
so
Dino.
much, Paul. Um, I guess the sentiment I'm feeling right now is I somehow wish, after hearing them both speak, I somehow wish that it were the two of them running for president rather than Trump or Kamala, because
I
uh,
agree.
the whole thing has just
Yeah.
divided the United States so badly. It's so fractured right now that there has been two assassination attempts on Trump. The Democrats are really so riled up over the possibility of losing. Um, it feels like if it were Vance and Waltz running for president, that we would have a quieter United States who would gladly go to the polls and vote uh, without too much anxiety, because the lines are drawn and they know what these two will do. And so on that basis, we end tonight by saying that it's still a toss up, and in the
Yeah, it is.
elections will be in
Yeah,
a few days from now.
yeah. Mm-mm.
probably just a little over a week,
Mm.
which means that when I go into editing, I'll have to work fast so that we're still relevant with this
Yeah,
particular show.
yeah. By the way, Dino, this election will not be what we call concluded fast because of all the mail-in ballots,
Yep.
and
Ah, yeah.
they have to count the mail-in ballots as well as the on-the-site ballots. So
Mm.
so far, 60 plus million already voted, early
Well,
voting.
Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the
Yes.
mail-in. So it's going to
Mm.
take like probably a week or so before they declare a winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
But as a general sign, though, when the turnout is high in the voting, the
Yeah.
Republicans lose. Historically
Oh,
speaking.
okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
Mm. I'd just like to probably say of Vance's closing remarks that he kept hammering away at Kamala during those
Mhm.
closing remarks. And this is where
Mhm.
I understand with greater clarity what Paul was saying during the part where we analyzed the president's debate,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
for crying out loud, Kamala had little to do with with what happened
Biden.
during the Biden administration, because indeed a vice president is the spare tire, and not the person who actually leads the country. So blaming her for so many of the woes that the country is going through, although what Dinah said about the borders are thing, that's undeniably true, but she can't be blamed for all of it.
Mhm.
Biden is the one that really uh, should have been the one being heckled by Vance. So on that basis, I say that Waltz came out on top of this debate, although Vance certainly was the more polished candidate. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this particular episode, and I'm so grateful that Dinah and Aylene came over and joined us tonight, because they certainly made this a spicier
Oh
analysis
yeah,
than it usually
Thank
is
you.
when
definitely.
when we're all just boys. So, ladies, you're both wonderful.
Thank
I know
you.
this is going to be a well watched episode. Thanks to both of you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you liked what you heard, you liked our analysis, do leave comments. We appreciate them. And if you have ideas for topics that we should be covering for our next episodes, do let us know, and we will give it serious consideration. As we have one of our viewers, when he asked us to analyze Johnny Antilion, we listened, and we did that. So we listen to our viewers. So
Mhm.
do like, share, subscribe, and we are officially putting an end to serious topics, because coming up in episode 3 is an analysis of some of America's greatest comedians, and we're going to start with none other than somebody who looks remarkably like Waltz, and that is Don Rickles. So for those of you who belong to our age group, you know who we're talking about. One of America's greatest comedians who can really roast and heckle and get away with it. So, if you're up to that, stay tuned for that episode. And as ever, we say here that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day.